In today's Nonsense Wars production, we look at one of the last old models I haven't covered on the channel. The Conrail N6A Cabooses started life as a New York Central design, but many of the 100-plus fleet made it through the Penn Central merger and the 1974 nationalization. The Spartan appearance of these units reflect an era where cabooses are more observation platform than rolling office. I like these modern cabooses because they break the usual stereotype, and I like seeing new cars with old locomotives. I built the N6A partly because I could find drawings, and partly because I think it complements my existing rolling stock. Much of the specific equipment on the fictional Nonsense Wars Railroad comes from the PRR and other eastern roads. For example, the P-54s, the U-30B, and even things like the old NYC Baggage 999. I found this build pretty easy. The short length of the caboose means that the bogies don't need to pivot much, and I don't need to worry about the wheels hitting the skirt. The drawbars, mounted to the bogies, also don't move that far, so I can put the ladders on the frame. This almost never happens. The skirts themselves give the frame its structural integrity, and I've built them the same way as those on the Trinity gondolas, studs out and connected to brackets. Thanks to the aforementioned situation with the bogies, I don't need to skimp on reinforcement to add greebles for some of the grab irons and railings. I built the sides of the cabin studs up and the walls at the ends studs out. The snot ends allow for more accurate detailing of the windows and the doors, though my favorite part is actually the tiny lamp on the 1x1 bracket. The interior, or the lack thereof, contains a surprising amount of supporting structure for the ends and the roof. Lego generally doesn't do a great job with very shallow slopes, so the roof rests on hinge bricks in the center, though I couldn't quite close the gaps at the ends. The railings on the decks don't really have a great solution or great color choice. I mostly had to cartoon them with rods of available colors. There could exist a more clever way to implement them, kind of like with the flags on the Canadian Pacific business car, but I haven't tried to revisit this yet. Sometimes the finished model feels a little wide or a little short, even though the actual dimensions should match the scaling drawing to within a plate. Perhaps the bulk of the grab irons and the railings cause it to look fat from some angles, but other angles also look fine, so I'm not entirely sure. Finally, I've had a CAD file for this model for sale on the Rebrickable site for quite some time, but I'm upgrading it to instructions to go along with this video. You can find a link to the listing in the description. I, of course, also included a file for a weathered version, which I may implement sometime in the future. On that note, stay tuned for when I finally cover the ACE and the T1 properly, but this is the end of the video, so have a nice day.
What is that?